Good morning, everyone. I hope I'm audible. Let me just check. Yes. Good morning, everyone. Let us start our day, folks. Now, as you all are aware, that the order of the day is always we start off with our meditation and followed up by journaling and then by some the newspaper of today. Now, since a couple of you are new here, you can check out the Google Classroom that I have provided you, and on that Google Classroom you can see under classwork. Um, Let me just show that to you. Now, if you see under classwork, you will find that you will have newspapers that are there. So at 4 a.m. roughly the newspaper is there. So you will get it early morning here. Then there is a group on WhatsApp as well as on Telegram where all the newspapers are circulated, just in case. I mean on Saturdays and Sundays usually. I'm waking up at around 5, so typically I don't upload the newspapers. Then you have issues of ethical dilemmas here. If there is an ethical issue that we have discussed, we would usually put it here. For example, we have already put a hijab issue. Then Economist magazine, since most of you are from economics optional, this is something that you can see. But my favorite portion is morning motivation, where I keep putting up some kind of differentiated kind of thought process that probably is required for this particular examination and life per se. Then certain quotations are also there. If you want to add more quotations, you can do that. Now, a lot of you have asked me this earlier as well, that how to prepare for current affairs. See, if you're in the initial phase of your prep, there is no point taking too much time onto current affairs, because that, as I tell you, is a stochastic event. It's a random event. We don't know what will come. But yes, reading newspapers is important. Probably what you can do is make two registers, or make a register where you have a sectional kind of a register. In one place you can probably write words that you don't know the meaning to. For example, if you come across a word like haters, it might be a word that you've never seen, never used. Maybe incorporate it and see the usage, where to use it. So this way your English will increase, will improve. Then the other thing is quotations. If you're finding out a quotation, maybe you can note it down somewhere in a register, quotations and anecdotes that you see. And maybe in the third part you can see ethics, examples of ethics that you could have used in your GS answers or in your essay answers. So three-part register, probably you can small register in three parts. These days you have these three-part registers that come. So something like that, if you can maintain, that will be really nice. Apart from that, I don't expect you to do anything for current affairs right now. Moving forward, as I had promised you, once you are done with the GPT versions, and I hope all of you have now bought GPT, in at least in the shared version. And if you have not bought it, especially the new ones, if you have not taken the GPT version, then I would say that please make sure that you have the paid version of GPT with you, because we will be using it extensively. And the kind of tech integration that I'm going to tell you is going to involve chat GPT. Claude is also an alternative, but first you get your hang with GPT, and then maybe once you have extra resources or extra time, then you can have a try at Claude as well. And moving forward, as I told you, that once the initial part of your tech journey is there, then the next part of the tech journey starts with integration of your GPTs and the note making that you do directly with your notebooks that you will prepare in OneNote or any kind of this thing. So this thing is something that the automation part is something which is important. But for now, let's focus on just reading and understanding stuff and asking GPT questions about what you know and what you don't know. So with that, let me start our day. Mm, the moment that I start taking sessions offline. So I told you once a month we'll have an offline session as well. So maybe that time I can distribute some of these journals that are still there with me, and later on we can have better journals that I have in mind, printed for all of you. So I'll let you know this month when are we meeting. But for all D3 people, I would suggest that if you can join offline, that will be great. If you can't, maybe online, we can do that. So with this, let's start our meditation. Let me put a 2-minute timer. Now, France coalition puzzle after left bloc's right. Now, this is something that, as an ongoing news, that you should be aware about what is happening in France. Now, Emmanuel Macron, who's the president right now, comes from a centrist party, and there was a lot of emphasis, a lot of political backing that was from the Le Pen's RN, basically National Rally Alliance, and less Republicans. So these are the right side of the. These are all from the right side of the political spectrum, which talks about going hard on immigrants. Just like Tories are there in this thing in your UK, who are very hard. Just like if you remember that we had talked about, Rishi Sunak had a plan of sending all illegal immigrants to Rwanda, and that is something that you should also be considered. You should consider things like that as part of your ethics and essay, that how humanity has been lost in measures like these. So all of this political right basically is talking about revival of the domestic economies, no, I mean less of trade, international trade, and then also they are also conservatives in terms of allowing for religious freedom. So this is the right side of the spectrum. What has happened is in the France, for the first time, you have a hung parliament where you do not have a majority per se, and you have this new popular front which was made of all the left parties together, and it was just made a couple of weeks ago, and all of them have come together to basically disrupt the winning of the extreme right. And um, and then as I told you, this was just forged last month, and this united left bloc has made gains to call for super rich tax. When we compare it to the Indian political spectrum. Now, if you see towards the right and the conservatives, you will find BJP and the other parties. When you talk about politically center, you can think of something like political center plus left. You would say Congress, Aam Aadmi Party, Trinamool Congress to a certain extent. These would be all your center to center left parties, and then you have left parties, which is CPI. That is completely left. So think of that political spectrum and always try to compare this thing. Similarly, Democrats and Republicans are on the right side when it comes to America, on the right side of political spectrum, and then you have Democrats, which are usually on the left side of the political spectrum. So take a note of what is happening in France, and then also you should be aware about how the French polity works. The relationship between the president and the prime minister. They do have a prime minister, and the prime minister is probably going to be from a political party which is not from that of Macron. Therefore, dealing with political issues in France is going to be tough. But France's elections are so important because it is the second largest economy in European Union after Germany, and apart from that, it is the only nuclear state in Europe, which is part of EU, and that is coordinating with NATO. So this is why all of this is important. Now, we are going to talk a significant amount about Modi and Moscow message, deepening ties, no solution on battlefield. There are going to be a lot of editorials on this particular topic. We are going to see an explained page on this as well. Then let's further. Now, for folks who are new, what you can also do is, if you have the paid version of GPT, all you can do is just take a screenshot of the article and then just paste it at GPT. So for example, if you see this, give me 1 second. So For example, I'm going to talk about employment rate today, and there is a new data set which RBI has published, which is the CLEMS data set. So you just paste the article there as a screenshot, and it will give you the summary of the article. You have to ask it first what is the summary, and then it will also give you application on UPSC. You can further ask questions. What are the issues? What are the for example, it will also prompt you how does joblessness rate affect inflation and stuff. So all of this you can just copy and paste and then do it. But the problem is, once you do this copy paste thing, just a second folks, just give me 1 second. All right. So the thing is with respect to each particular article, you can get a summary, but this summary is not going to help you a lot, because you're going to lose the translation, lose the essence, and the essence will be lost in translation. So therefore, I always suggest all the students to follow, read the, maybe if you don't know about something, maybe read the summary first and then go to the original article. Now, if you're not aware about what is happening in Manipur, maybe you can ask GPT about what are the issues in Manipur, what are the distributions. So Manipur as a state is divided into two parts. There's something called the hill part of the state, and then you have the valley part of the state. Now, you have different kinds of communities living. You have the Metis, which are living in the valley, which are well to do, and you have the Cookies and Zos, who are on the hilly terrain. Now, Metis and Zos also have some kinds of cultural linkages with other parts of, say, Nagaland, as well as that of as well as that of Myanmar as well. So Chin, Kuki, Zo community are kind of centralist communities. Now, what has happened in the last few years is that the Metis, which are the valley residing people, have got a lot of economic power, and because they're in the valley, they are well to do, and they are getting significant amount of benefits. And even electorally, if you see, the representation of Metis are much more as compared to Cookies. But what has happened is, in the last couple of years, especially last year, what happened was that the High Court had ordered. I'm not sure if it was the Kolkata High Court or the Manipur High Court. So one of the High Courts had ordered that you should give ST status to Metis. Now, if you see, in a country where joblessness is rife, and reservations is a way of life, they're giving ST status is basically dealing in competitive politics. So because they were given ST status, there was a huge uproar, and the entire state, because of that ethnic divide, the entire state, and the government did not do anything. In fact, the government took sides of in this entire issue, and the government was dismissing this particular fact, the lack of failure and the lack of governance. The government just dismissed this fact as everything, all violence is basically coming from Myanmar, and people who are agitating are because the government is going for a crackdown for their drug related business. And Manipur was wrongfully ignored throughout this particular year or so. And within this time, around 60,000 people have displaced, and it took a very animated and a very impassioned this thing questioning from one of the MPs from Manipur, Bimol Koijam, who had would basically said that, is the silence communicating to the people of Northeast, particularly Manipur, that you do not matter under the Indian scheme of things. So this is something which is a major issue. You should be aware about each particular state related issue, especially in the Northeast. So Manipur, this particular issue is there. Then Nagaland, what is this NCIM, and what are the Naga Peace Accord that we signed in 2015, all the players. So you should be aware about Indian political issues with respect to each particular state, but right now this is important. So with that background, maybe you can give it a read. If you want a 2 to 5 minute summary of what is happening, maybe you can watch a YouTube explainer video which deals with this particular issue. Then The next question is the test in Tehran. Now, I've been telling you that your international relations should also be very very clear, and especially with respect to the fact that major players of the world. Now, something happening in say New Zealand might not be that important, because from geopolitical point of view, New Zealand is not very important. But so let's take the case of Tehran, or Iran, whose capital is Tehran. Now, this is, as I told you yesterday as well, this is a very very important country because it lies at the heart of crisis right now, in where the crisis is emanating. See, it lies between the Western world and the Oriental world. So you have the Sino-Russian alliance, and you have the on the left side you have the NATO and the Western alliance. So it is in between, and it, by the way, it postures, it gels well together with the Sino-Russian alliance. Then apart from that, you also have the fact that on the north, and you should be aware where this thing is, Iran is. On the north of it is, you have the entire issue of West Asia with respect to Israel and Hamas, Israel and Hamas and Palestine, and to the south of it is Afghanistan and Pakistan. So you see, where it lies is very crucial. Now, what has happened is that the president of Iran was killed in a helicopter crash, which required a new presidential runoff, and there were two candidates. The candidate who has won, Pezeshkian, has a reformist reputation. But at the same point of time, you should also be aware of the political arrangements in Iran. Now, the political arrangements in Iran is such that the powers of the president is very limited. He's at the head of the state and merely spearheads the implementation of broad political guidelines, and the head actually is the supreme leader, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. So he is basically the head, but at the same point of time, there are a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of issues which are there in the current governance, especially because the fact that the youth is not coming out for voting, and they're disillusioned by the entire political process, and more so because of the fact of what had happened during the mass anti-government protests in the 2022 Mahsa Amini anti-government protests, which also included, by the way, during the Football World Cup. So you should be aware about Mahsa Amini protests in general as well. Who was this girl who was sentenced to death for not wearing the Islamic Republic's the dress code that is there. So maybe you can give it a read, and whether or not this particular person who is now the new president is able to reform Iran and make relationships with the West better, is something that we need to see. So read about this. Then a very very important article, which is, now you can read this: Macron's gamble, French president's decision to call snap polls has yielded mixed results, but he must learn the art of negotiation, because there's no particular party that has come to power. It's a hung parliament. So, but what is more important is trade policy needs a reset. Now, this is the kind of article, again, this and there's another article that I'll tell you. These are articles as economics optional people should have on their registers. So you maybe take a printout and keep it, and maybe when we'll do our international relations or WTO issues, you can use it. And in fact, for GS also, this is an important topic, because WTO becomes an important topic for our GS discussions. Now, let's understand the history of this. Now, you need to do a lot of research if you're new to UPSC about WTO, about different agreements of WTO. For example, there are certain agreements like agreement on agriculture, agreement on intellectual property, and then you have your sanitary and phytosanitary norms. Then you have something called as non agriculture market access, which is basically industrialized goods, and then you have GATS, General Agreement on Trade and Services. So all these agreements that are there, which were the part of the when 1995, when WTO was incepted. These are the legacy issues. If I can use the word legacy, these are the legacy issues of WTO. Some of which have been negotiated, some of which have not been negotiated. But there are new domains, since trade is something which is very dynamic. There are new domains that have opened up in the world. For example, e-commerce, trade, climate change, investment facilitation. Now, these are issues which are important from the current point of view. And India has had a very blockish, or a very conservative approach, and it has not allowed. And by the way, WTO works with consensus, folks. So even if a single country does not agree with the outcome, it can be blocked. So that's why WTO has been extremely slow in terms of reforming the multilateral trading architecture. And that's why you see a lot of plurilateral organizations, or a lot of these multilateral small organizations coming. For example, you have this thing called, say, even a regional association like RCEP, or Transatlantic Partnership Agreement. These are these are not multilateral, because it does not involve all countries, but there are plurilateral because it involves a number of countries. But because of the fact that we are not able to come up with a truly multilateral agreement, we are only getting to these small plurilateral agreements. And in international trade, I will teach you the theory of second best, and you have to give these examples in the theory of second best as well. But in general, as a GS student, you should be aware of the fact that multilateralism has been extremely small, extremely weak. And apart from that, in the working of WTO, you should also be aware there is something called as dispute settlement body. Now, this dispute settlement body is not working. Now it is a two-stage dispute settlement body. It's not written in the article, by the way. It's a two-stage. One is the dispute settlement, and then there is the appellate body, where it can be challenged. It's like a court. Now, because of US, the judges of that court has not been appointed, and therefore nothing is happening with respect to, say, India and US has a dispute towards subsidies, or India China have a dispute. They will go to the dispute settlement body. Suppose the dispute settlement body gives it in favor of India, then China will apply to the appellate body. But since there are no judges in the appellate body, the decision will not be implemented. So that is where WTO has been crawling these in the last few years, instead of working. Now, what the article says is that we have this Viksit Bharat vision of 2047, where we want to become a developed country, and for that we need to use these emerging fields like digital economy, high tech manufacturing. All of this is needed, but the problem is that all of this is being guided by geoeconomics and emerging technologies, where India has a huge stake. Now, we are evolving our domestic policies as well, and we have become the third most significant choice for global investors after US and China. And we also aim, these are aims that you need to remember, folks. Our aim is to have global goods exports to $1 trillion by 2030, and becoming a manufacturing powerhouse. And in fact, having this e-commerce to around 350 billion. But right now our exports of e-commerce is only 3 to 3.5 billion dollars, which is just 1% of the global exports, of the total exports. So we and the reach is going to be, the global market is going to be $2 trillion. So therefore there's a huge scope, and we cannot be aloof of this particular regulatory regime, because even if we say that we will not comply to anything that WTO gives, countries in the plurilateral platform of coming up with regulations. For example, uh, EU has its own data protection act, and any company which has to trade with EU has to comply with the data protection act. It now has an AI act as well. And then it has something called as what is that called, emissions, something related to emissions, I'm forgetting. With respect to that, if anyone remembers, please write it on the chat box, with respect to EU's emission norms. um, so the issue is that all these countries are basically having their own mechanisms. And if India wants to become a country where you have predictability, you cannot have unpredictability in commerce. One of the purposes of WTO is to provide predictability in trade, that you will not have trade barriers erected overnight. And these are issues that needs to be resolved. And apart from that, yes, it is a carbon border adjustment mechanism. Please read about carbon border adjustment mechanism. It's a very important mechanism for your exam. Now, basically taxes any particular I mean country with respect to its carbon emissions. For example, if India is going to export something to, say, UK. Now, or not UK, because it's not part of EU now. If you're going to export something to Germany, now what they will see is that how are our carbon emissions. So if our carbon emissions are more, they will put more duty on us. So they want, basically, it's kind of a trade, it's basically kind of a trade restricting measure that they have done. So we'll talk more about it when we'll go to international relations or international economics. But this is something that you can take forward, is that between 2000 and 2007, India's trade to GDP ratio surged from 12% to 23% and has stabilized there. But we can ideally increase to even 30 to 35% if we open up our economies and we have better trading agreements. So read about this particular article. It's an important article. Then the next article is this thing, joblessness and skill gap. Now, this article basically talks about the fact that the loss that you have seen, or the revival of the opposition can be seen from the point of view of the fact that people are not just interested in rights. People, for example, the NDA government has given a lot of rights and a lot of empowerment tools to women, to elderly, etc. But at the same point of time, one issue at which they have failed consistently in the last 10 years is providing jobs. And that is something that is a major problem. And if we are not able to, and we know that from, from other discussion as well, that without jobs, what will happen is that the consumption will be low. If the consumption will be low, then the incentive to invest and the demand will also be low. And if that is the case, then the corporate investment also goes down. So this is something that we need to, it's kind of a vicious cycle that is there, that is built because of joblessness. But the problem is that how economic growth is being sustained is because in India we have gone for more of capital intensive growth rather than labor intensive growth. We are moving towards labor saving technology and capital intensive technologies. So that is where the issue is. But from a political point of view, and from a sociological point of view, and even from an economic point of view, that is something which is not very right. And we'll understand this through the RBI CREMS the survey as well. So that's a new data point that you should be aware about. Now, if you see this, this is the first part of the article, talks about the fact that it might become a socially explosive problem, and all political parties needs to work on it. Now, you think, when you think of poverty, when you think of employment, you think of this thing, NREGA. Now, NREGA does provide a benefit to the people in the rural community. And there have been talks. For example, Rajasthan had implemented an urban Narega as well. So urban form of Narega as well, which is, I think, is called as Indira Gandhi Rozgar yojana in urban areas. But the point is, these unskilled work and all of such work is just for maintaining the minimum income. It will just provide you sufficient amount of income so that you don't fall under poverty. But what we need is actually a job which is more productive. So for that, what is required is basically a skill development. And if you remember, Andhra Pradesh is going for something called as skill survey. Now this is something that you can add to your answers, that see, instead of caste surveys, what we need is skill surveys, to see where are the skills that we are lacking, and then help the society to come up with this. Now this author provides a number of examples from both UK, US and Africa, in the ways that how local firms are now stakeholders in providing skills, because they are going to get these skilled people. I mean on their in their companies. So you have local firms, local governments, business associations, civic organization, which are coming together and then contributing towards vocational education. Now this is the kind of model that we can probably also follow. And in agriculture, we have already seen that we can pay attention to agriculture attention extension services, and non-farm enterprises can also help create jobs in the rural area. So this is something that you should read. This is a very very important article with respect to this joblessness and skill gap. Then why NEET does not work. This particular article talks about the constitutional issues with NEET. Now, if you see, education is in the concurrent list, and what had happened during NEET was that when it was introduced, a lot of political debate, especially in southern part of the country, with respect to having a common paper. Because what the article, the essence of the article, I'll give you the essence of the article here, that if different people have different cultural and racial experiences, like you and me have different experiences of life. Someone might be coming from say a tribal community, someone might be coming from a Dalit community, someone might be coming from a Brahmin community. Racial experiences, gender experiences are very different, and our abilities are shaped by all of the experiences that we have. My ability is shaped by my experiences, your ability is shaped by your experiences, and it is unlikely that a single measure could be developed to that would work equally well for all. And basically what you are saying is that conceptualizing everything into one number, which is neat, is not going to provide the better form. And in fact, has it curbed commercialization of education? Absolutely not. Now right now we have around 24 lakh seats that are there, first of all, and every student needs to pay at least 1000 to 1700 rupees for the examination. Apart from the fact that what data suggests is that people who are getting selected in NEET are majorly those who have taken coaching. Now what happens is that out of this 24 lakh people who are appearing, there are only 60,000 government seats. Now of these government seats, the meritorious people take this one, and the rest of the seats which are left, around 50-60,000 seats that are left, are basically not filled by people with merit, but people who can afford it. Because if you see the cutoffs, the cutoff was initially, the eligibility cutoff was 50 percentile, then it was reduced to 30 percentile, and now to 0 percentile. That means even if you have 1 percentile in your NEET exam, and if you have money, you can easily enter into the education, or into the medical college. So and a lot has to be done with the Medical Council of India, which was dissolved after a corruption charge when I was an aspirant. I still remember these days. And now you have this PPP model, that each district will have a hospital, and then it will also have a private participation, and then all your the government schemes will be run through that particular school, that particular hospital. Now if you compare in NEET to other countries, for example UCAT in UK, and then MCAT in US, what we find is that they have a minimum eligibility, that this is the minimum amount of marks these are the minimum amount of marks that you need before sitting for that particular exam. And this is something that we also need in our case. We cannot have zero merit when it comes to the field of medical sciences. So, and the last part is with respect to the federalism issues, that public health is something which is a state subject, and education is part of concurrent subject, and therefore all states need to be taken into consideration and confidence while you are framing something like this. So read about this article. It's a very very good article with respect to the politics of medical education. Now, last part of the day, no. Employment raises to 6% provisionally in FY24 from 3.2 percent in FY23. Now employment growth has grown according to this particular survey. I want you to do a pretty good research on RBI's measuring poverty. RBI has this index called as measuring poverty at index level. The India sorry the India CLEMS data. Now please read about it. It includes measures of gross value added, gross value output, labor employment, labor quality, capital stock, so total factor productivity. So all of these are there, and it covers the entire Indian economy. And you can actually also collaborate it with, or merge it with, merge in the sense also understand it together with the PLS survey, which was released in May 2024. Now this is something that you should have as an economics student if you have economics as your optional, and even for GS subject you should know what is the unemployment rate. Now you've seen that the in the urban areas the unemployment has reduced, and the female unemployment rate has also reduced from 9.2 to 8.5, and the labor force participation rate is somewhere around 50%, whereas for women, I think the female labor force participation rate in urban areas is somewhere around 23%. So read about this. Then the next article, MSME bodies urge RBI to double the threshold period for SMA to stress loans. Now there is something called as NPA. Now NPA is basically whenever a person is not able to give the interest or the principal amount for 90 days, the asset is considered to be as a non-performing asset. But even before turning into a non-performing assets, there are stress signs that are there. Now let's take the example. Let's take a different example. Now if I know that you're not performing well in your mocks, I know that you're not going to perform that well in your final examination. So think of that. Think of these as pre-boards, that it gives you a window into the fact that whether a particular entity is going under stress or not. And there we have these threefold classification, where you have SMA 0, where when the principal or the interest is not overdue but for more than 30 days, but the account is showing some signs of stress. Then SMA 1, where the principal and the interest rate is overdue between 31 days and 60 days, and SMA 2, when the principal and the interest is overdue for 61 and 90 days. But what the MSME people are saying is that for us, it takes 40 to 45 days to manufacture the product, and then to market and get money it takes around 200 days. So this cycle is not converging with the SMA, and once you are declared as in a SMA category, then the borrowers cannot utilize their entire credit lines to pay their dues. That's why they go under. Therefore what the bodies are saying is that the broad consensus is to double the SMA period from 90 days to 180 days, because of the kind of market that they operate in. So read about this. Government reopens application window for white goods. Please read about what white goods are. Then maybe read about India's public debt offers. And this I've already taught you, how last minute left center deal thwarted French far right. Cognitive test is not very important, but yes, behind Russia's higher income. Now what has happened is, because whenever you have a war, because the entire defense industry starts producing, and you need a lot of investment, you need a lot of economic wherewithal to withstand a war. The economic activity, despite all the sanctions that are there on Russia, has improved, maybe because of the base effect as well, and it has moved from a upper middle income country to a high income country. Now, World Bank classifies economies into four groups. One is low, the other is low middle, upper middle, and high middle. So it has now classified this thing Russia into a high income group country, which is having a per capita income of more than $14,000. In fact, Ukraine also has increased its ranking because of the fact of its poor base, as well as the fact that number of people have left Ukraine, around 15% population. So therefore it's a per capita basis, and therefore it has improved. So these are a few things. Now, what are the issues? Why the curbs? Why are the sanctions not worked against this thing against Russia? Because oil is a major source of its revenue, and it's been able to export its oil. For example, India is a major consumer, China is a major consumer of its oil. Then it is also getting a significant amount of investment, from various sources, and the consumption has also not declined there. So because of all these factors, their economic growth is quite good. And how climate change fueled hurricane barrels record early intensification. Maybe you can read this particular article. So this is about our session today. Now we will meet tomorrow at 5:15, and we will discuss the newspaper of tomorrow. And in the upcoming couple of days, I will give you a call with respect to your enrollment in the D3 program. For some of you, the subscription has expired. Please do not pay on the same link. There's a different link that I'll give you, and then we'll take it. I'll take a feedback from all of you who are regularly attending, and then let's see how we can improve your preparation. Thank you very much, folks. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 5:50.